is a community of learners. That's it. People who come together to learn with and from each other. It could be at the side of a hill, it could be in a wood, it could be in somebody's garage, it could be anywhere. A school is simply a community of learners that comes together to learn with and from each other. All the things we've come to associate with schools are often the residue of the industrial origins of the mass system. And we can do without most of them. And even within the system, we can probably get rid of some of the things that we think are required because they're not. It's more that they're a habit than a point of legislation. That's, I know, what Dave has been doing in Australia. It's what's been happening in the democratic schools in Israel. It's what's been happening with groups like Big Picture School. It's what's behind all the schools that the 100 Project is looking at. People reinventing it from inside. The second thing is to recognize that the heart of a good school is not just students, but their relationship with teachers. There is no possibility of improving an education system beyond the ways in which we value, support, and train and encourage the work of great teachers. One of the things, I was thinking about the Dalai Lama, he was asked a question at some point during the course of this session, and he paused for a very long time. A bit like an uncomfortably long time, given I was chairing the session. I thought he'd dropped off, and he was, and we're all leaning forward, metaphorically, for the answer. He was sitting cross-legged on this throne. And then he kind of took a breath, and we thought, here it is. The answer we've been waiting for. And he said, I don't know. And I thought, what do you mean you don't know? You're the Dalai Lama. You have the definite article in your name. And he said, I'd never thought about that before. What do you think? To the audience. You see, what I loved about that was firstly that he was quite willing to say he didn't know. Here's one of the great teachers in the world saying, I don't know. And the fact is we don't know everything. Despite Google, we don't know everything. Knowledge is a fabric that we weave together through our cultural interactions. And nobody knows everything, and we shouldn't claim to know everything. But the second thing is that he said, what do you think? Because what's implicit in that is that great teachers are also great students. And students have as much to learn from each other as from the teacher, and the teacher has as much to learn from the students as from the other teachers in the school. In other words, learning properly conceived, teaching and learning is a conversation. It's a multifaceted dialogue. It's not a monologue, saving what's happening right now. So part of the process of revolutionizing schools is to focus as well on the talents, capacities, and interests, and the need for revivification teachers themselves have. You can do without everything else if you have a great relationship between teachers and learners. The second piece, though, is the curriculum. We have narrowed the curriculum unacceptably to the point now where we've arts programs out, physical education programs out, vocational programs, practical programs like this, and it's all in the false interest of utility. This is the last clip I'll show you. It's a very brief one, but this is a school in Massachusetts called Orchard Park, which is one of the worst schools in the state, and nobody wanted it. They'd had 5 head teachers in about as many years, and they were spending a fortune on security because there was so much violence going on in the schools. They hired a security firm to keep the place safe. A new head teacher came in and did something rather remarkable.
It was known as a dropout factory. Just 3 years ago, Orchard Gardens School in Roxbury, Massachusetts was plagued not only by bad test scores, but violence.
All types of dangerous weapons, going to the store in the middle of classes, barging into rooms, it was crazy.
Students couldn't even carry backpacks out of fear they'd use them to hide weapons. In fact, in the school's first 7 years, there were 5 principals. And every fall, more than half of the teachers didn't return. But that all changed in 2010 with principal number 6 and his bold idea.
I had a huge security infrastructure, and I decided to eliminate it completely and reinvest all of that money into the arts.
Principal Andrew Bott's goal? To use the arts as a tool for academic success.
A lot of people actually would say to me, you realize Orchard Gardens is a career killer. There was really this disbelief that anybody would choose to come. I mean, the school definitely had a prison feel.
A crescendo, not anymore. With the help of the Pumped Up Arts program, Orchard Gardens went from being among the worst performing schools in Massachusetts to having one of the fastest student improvement rates statewide.
It develops the whole student, and you're going to see improvement in other academic areas.
Tell me, did the hallways look like this?
No, there was not this level of student work on the walls. Now the hallways capture the spirit of the school. We are far from done, but we're definitely on the right path.
Eighth grader Kevon Little embodies that turnaround. Once struggling, he's now headed to the competitive Boston Arts Academy for high school.
Now the teachers actually help me and they push me on the right track, I can actually see a future for myself.
A future made a lot brighter by a crazy idea that now looks more like a stroke of genius.
The school is awesome.
Katie Tur, NBC News, Roxbury, Massachusetts.
You see, the last thing that illustrates, which is what we know, is that learning is not a linear process, it's a dynamic one, it's an interactive one. A linear analysis would tell you we need to improve maths and science scores, if that's what people believe is the priority. Therefore, we should cut all the other programs and do nothing but that. But any knowledge of human beings and how people live and thrive tells you that all these things work together to improve the overall growth and development of the child. And the word they use there is culture, and this is the thing I just want to end on. I've often spoken a lot about the industrial origins of education. But the point I'm making in Creative Schools is that the real metaphor for education is not industrial manufacturing, it's industrial agriculture. During the industrial period, agriculture became industrialized as well, through mechanization, through development of chemical fertilizers, and also through pesticides. And it's been hugely successful from one point of view. Yields in farms and among animals, I mentioned the abattoir, have increased enormously. We do the same thing with animals. We pump them full of antibiotics and we're full of hormones and they get bigger and bigger. It's all about yield. But we've paid a big price for it too, because these are unnatural processes. We've exposed our animals to appalling suffering along the way, in a way that's indefensibly inhumane. But also, agriculturally, we've destroyed topsoils in many parts of the world and polluted waterways. So these systems, which are all about yield, have also proved to be unsustainable and inimical to our own existence on the earth. They are not consistent with the conditions we need to grow. The alternative system is organic farming. And the interesting to me about this is organic farmers are interested in the plants, but they don't focus on the plant. Organic farmers focus on the soil. They know if they get the soil right, the plant will be fine. So they use natural systems of composting, natural cycles of growth and development, of having fallow fields and the rest. But they make sure the soil is rich, sustainable, and constantly being refreshed and revivified by the process of growth itself. And the result is these things are long-term and sustainable. The analogy with schools is direct. I think we've spent too much time now focused on a narrow conception of what schools are about. The competitive standardization system has been promoting a view that it's all about output and yield, graduation rates, scores, international league tables, and it hasn't worked. It's been a busted experiment. The great schools, the ones I've shown you, the ones represented here, among many of the pioneers and innovators, the work that Dave's doing in Australia, are based on the organic principle. If you get the culture right in the school, you get the mix right, then everything grows and it takes care of itself. In the end, we are organic creatures, and the only way we'll make our children thrive is to understand the conditions under which all living things thrive. It's an ecosystem where one thing will feed another, and if the conditions are right, people will grow themselves. And that's, I think, our big challenge. It's often said that if you watch a plant grow, it's a kind of miracle. Well, it is. And if you watch a child grow, it's a miracle too. And if you're in education, you're in the miracle business. And it's the only business, really, that we should be in. Thank you.
Good. So I've decided I'm going to start calling you the Sir Ken Robinson. I'll start a bit of a trend going around the world. Hashtag the Sir Ken. So, I want to take the time just to check in with a couple of questions. So if we can get the Glisser questions up, if we've got a few questions on there. If you haven't had the opportunity, we've definitely had the opportunity. We've got some big questions up here. Let's go for the top one. We've got 23 votes for this, Sir Ken. We are a creative charity school working with disaffected young people in the south and southeast of London. Will you be a patron?
Speak to me afterwards. Yeah.
Will you please be our Secretary of Education?
That's serious, yeah. I'm a patron of lots of things. I'd love to know more about it, yeah.
Would you like to be the Secretary of Education? We've got, this is our next one, next most popular one.
Yes and no. I'll tell you why no. Firstly, you have to get elected, and I'm unelectable. Seriously, and then you find yourself in these systems, and people are subject to all kinds of constraints and pressures which start to circumscribe what they can actually do. And I think often you can achieve more being outside the system and agitating for change than you can with these sort of official titles around your neck. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm deeply committed to change in public policy, but you have to work out where your energies and talents are best used. So no, it's never occurred to me to stand for a political office.
Fair enough. This one I think is really pertinent. Should we be abandoning all standardised testing, since even schools fostering creativity are judged by subject achievements?
Yes.
Couldn't agree more.
But let me just explain about that. People have often said to me, the thing is, you can't assess creativity. Of course you can. I remember I ran a whole initiative in the UK when David Blunkett here was Secretary of Education. It was 20 years ago. We did a report called All Our Futures. And I remember somebody in the government saying to me, and by the way, you'll understand, this isn't just about creativity. Creativity is part of a much bigger argument about human flourishing. But I remember one of the members of the government at the time saying, creativity is very important. The trouble is you can't define it. And I said, no, I think the trouble is you can't define it. So let's define it for you. So we defined it on this group as the process of having original ideas that have value. And the critical thing about it is you can't be creative in the abstract. You can't just sit there and be creative. You have to do something. You can be a creative mathematician, a creative physicist, a creative writer, a creative dancer, a creative business leader, a creative teacher, but you have to do something. And the two things about it are that you would judge it according to its originality in the field. So, does this count as something fresh? It doesn't have to be fresh to the whole of the world. I mean, if you're helping children to draw, 8-year-olds, then you have to judge them by relevant criteria. Is it new to them? Is it pushing their boundaries? Is it extending their imagination? There's no point comparing what an 8-year-old does to the roof of the Sistine Chapel. And saying, this is all very well, but check this out. Come back when you've got something. It has to be relevant to that. But you can be objective about creative work as long as you know it's rooted in practices of various sorts. And I'm not against all forms of standardisation. I mean, some things you can. I mean, if there are certain skills in all fields that you can say, well, we can objectively see if you can do that or not. The trouble is, this has become an obsession. And it's the old thing about knowing, the cost of everything and the value of nothing. That we reduce, it's what McNamara's fallacy was. We focus not on what matters, but on what can be tested. We make the measurable important rather than important measurable. So yes, in the interest of getting back to looking at it properly, let's just get rid of it all and stuff. I mean, we're not going to. But I think it's worth being very sceptical about standardised testing until we can show it actually has value in these larger issues that we're trying to promote.
Well, Sir Ken, I could listen to you all day. Unfortunately, we are running out of time. I want to thank you personally for inspiring the work of education changemakers across Australia. I want to thank you for addressing this extremely wonderful audience, and thank you so much for spending your time here with us at the BETT Arena on this Friday.
Thank you for all you do.
Thank you so much.